Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Diana Carmela and welcome back if you're returning, or welcome if you're new. Welcome to I Am That I Am. On today's episode, I generally wanted to talk about the 10 tell signs that you're going through a spiritual awakening. And this is probably one of the episodes that I'm most excited about, just because that's something that I've been going through for the last 6 years, since 2019. And it's an ongoing process. Once you start, you never go back, and it's genuinely tough. Why do I say that it's tough, or at least it has been super tough for me? And when I talk to people online, because I've never really met anybody in person that is going through it, but I've met I've met a lot of people online that are, and it's a tough thing to go through. A spiritual awakening does not to be confused with something like you start to be religious and you start to follow a certain type of faith like Christianity or Islam or anything else. It's not anything like that. It has generally nothing even to do with God, because once you start with religion, because when you start to have a spiritual awakening, a lot of times it's triggered by the fact that you are questioning reality outside of anything and everything that we've been taught. So that's outside of religion, outside of government, outside of the education system, outside of pop culture, outside of everything. You start to actually question life at such a deep level. So I'm actually going to read what Google tells us that a spiritual awakening is. According to Google, a spiritual awakening is a profound shift in awareness, often described as a move towards a deeper understanding of oneself, life, and the universe, leading to a new perspective and sense of purpose. So it's exactly that. But in this episode, I will pretty much deconstruct what Google just said in the 10 tell signs, like I said, that you are actually going through a spiritual awakening. Because I know that in 2019, when I was going through it, it's a video like this that helped me understand what I was going through, because I genuinely thought that I was going crazy. Why? Because sign number one, and I'm going to be reading through my notes just to make sure that I get through everything in a very well-structured way. But the first sign is that everything in your life is going to break down. Child. And when I mean everything in your life is going to break down, I mean everything in your life is going to break down. Your relationships. You might have a job, career. You might get fired, or you might move on your own like I did. You might move houses, you might move places. And I mean just everything. You might change friends, all your closest relationships suddenly away. You might be sick, you might get some type of disease, or you might get something because your physical body is also going through that spiritual awakening. And that's something that I'm going to talk about in a whole nother video. But everything in your life is going to break down. And this, when I started going through it in 2019, I genuinely thought I was going crazy. I did not understand what was happening. I did not understand why everything in my life was going south all of a sudden. It was like my job, my relationships, my friendships, even with my family. It was like I got sick, and I'm going to talk about it in another video. I don't think I'm ready to open up about this too, but I got super sick, and just so much was just happening, and it's been happening ever since then. But everything in your life breaks down because you are now starting to operate at a higher frequency. And that's not to say that you're better than anybody else. It's just that you have now accessed a higher frequency. And so now everything that you built on a lower frequency that used to make sense no longer makes sense. And now it literally has to go away. So you will see that if everything is breaking down in your life and you're wondering what the hell is happening, chances are that you are going through a spiritual awakening. The second sign is that you will start to experience synchronicities. Oh my God. You will start to see synchronicities. Bro. Anyways, you'll start to see synchronicities, meaning you'll start to see repeating like angel numbers, 111, 222, 333, 444, 555. You'll start to see, maybe if you see a red car one day, you'll start to always see red cars. Or if you see a certain name, you will always start to see that name. But you will start to see repeating patterns all the time that are called synchronicities. And you will, at some point, you will just notice like, okay, I've seen this number on a license plate. I've seen it on the clock. I've seen it on somebody's shirt. I've seen it on the camera. I've seen it on my phone. I'm seeing it everywhere. I'm seeing it on my flight ticket. I remember when it happened to me, again, back in 2019, that's when I started to realize these things. But I started to see 111 all the time. And when I say all the time, I meant all the time. I thought I was literally going crazy because I started to see 111 everywhere. I was like, okay, now what is this? What does all of that mean? At the time, I didn't understand. I didn't know. I thought the devil had gotten to me. I don't know. But you will start to see synchronicities. And if you don't see synchronicities, you will start to experience a lot of different coincidences. You must start to just think about someone, literally someone that you may not have even talked to in years. And all of a sudden they called you. That happened to me. I was thinking about a friend from middle school that I hadn't talked to in years. And all of a sudden she messaged me on Instagram. And that was not it. There was also family members that I hadn't talked to in years that I was just thinking about, and boom, the next minute I look over, they're messaging me on Facebook. Or somebody that I hadn't seen in such a long time, and I'm just thinking about them, and I realized that I was actually in the same room as them, but I hadn't even noticed. So many just crazy coincidences are going to start to appear, whether it's in synchronicities, you will start to see those angel numbers, like I said, or you will have those coincidences, repeating patterns, things that are just continuously happening that you're just like, okay, what is this? Why is this happening? So if this is happening to you, again, chances are you are going through a spiritual awakening. Now, the third sign, you're actually going to start to think you're going crazy. Because not only is everything in your life going to start to fall apart, you're going to start to see all of these crazy synchronicities and coincidences. And you're going to just in general start to feel different. It's like, and I will talk about that, goes into the fourth sign, but you will start to experience reality in such a more intense way. So you will literally start to think that you are going crazy. And personally, it's just a side note, but I think that that's where a lot of people get lost. I think that that's where a lot of people who didn't know that what they were going through end up being diagnosed as mentally ill, or end up just losing it completely because they don't know what is going on, and they genuinely think that they're going crazy. I think that if you have no one around you to guide you, or if you don't do the next steps that are, well, I won't say that are required, but the next steps that will help you ground yourself in this new life that you are experiencing, it can get really hard and it can get really desperate, especially for the fact that a lot of people around you are not going to understand. They're not going to see what you're seeing. They're not going to experience what you're experiencing, and they're definitely not going to be able to provide you the support that you truly need because they themselves have not been through it. And a lot of times those things are being diagnosed, and I believe that a lot of people who are in mental institutions is because they went through a spiritual awakening, and society as a whole doesn't understand it. And so we diagnose this as mental illness, but it's not. You're not going crazy. Everything is fine. You're just moving consciousness. Your body and your soul actually has opened a new door for you to experience life and reality in a much bigger, larger way than before. So if you think that you're going crazy, if you don't understand what is going on, that might be a sign that you're going through a spiritual awakening. Now, the fourth sign is that your perspective for everything is going to change. You might now have and actually like different types of food. The other foods that you used to eat no longer just taste the same. You don't like them anymore. The friends that you used to hang out with, you just don't relate with them anymore. The hobbies that you used to have, they just don't interest you anymore. It's just like everything that once used to make sense to you, just used to be who you thought you were, just now no longer makes sense, and you're developing new interests. Now you're finding yourself listening to videos like this, talking about spiritual awakening. You're finding yourself wanting to read more. You're starting yourself wanting to walk in nature more. You're finding yourself wanting to eat a little bit more healthy. You're starting yourself wanting to take care of yourself a little bit more. You're just not really into the, I will say, earthly things like you used to be. Now all of a sudden it doesn't bring you that satisfaction or that fulfillment that it used to. It's just like it doesn't taste the same anymore, and you just don't want it anymore, and you're into different things, and you start to think that what is happening to me? So if all of a sudden you are into completely new things that you used to be so into before no longer make sense, you no longer want them, those are signs that you are, say it with me, going through a spiritual awakening. So now for sign number 5 is that because of that, because everything is changing within yourself, it's manifesting outside of you as well. And so you start to genuinely feel isolated. You start to no longer connect with the people around you. You start to feel kind of different, and you start to feel lonely because you're no longer going to resonate with the world around you. And it's mostly going to feel really lonely at first. It's going to feel like a very lonely path. And I believe that all of the gurus that we've known into this world, if you talked about the Jesus, if you talk about the Ben Gandhis, if you're talking about the Mandelas, and all of these people that have really affected society in a big way, and all the gurus that ever existed, everybody has gone through that isolation phase, some for years, some for days, some for months, but it's reoccurring, honestly. But it's a part of the process because you are experiencing so much more. If you learn to ground yourself, if you learn about these things, and if you're inquisitive about what is happening to you, you will actually want, and you will be pushed and pulled into isolation so that you can go within and learn about who you truly are. This is what Jesus did when he fasted for 40 days. Just going within and learning about the power that be, learning about the God that you are, learning about everything that exists. And that is something that you have to do, that you cannot do if you're still attuned to the world around, if you're still listening to everything that is going on around you, if you're still being influenced by the world, because the world is lost. The world is very lost. And the only way for you to find who you truly are and to understand what is truly going on with you is to go within. And I believe that, again, a lot of people who are going through a spiritual awakening and who went through a spiritual awakening and who didn't realize what they were going through, who didn't have the resources, or who didn't have a mentor or people online to really tell them what they were going through, especially in the past, they might have gone through that and might have gone really crazy because they did not go through that isolation phase where they could really ground and understand who they are and really ground into their power. It's a very necessary stage, and you will have to go through isolation, because that goes right into sign number 6, is that you will have to heal. You will have to heal a lot of the traumas that made who you were, that informed your ego, that you will have to heal a lot of the traumas that you experience in your life, a lot of the programming from society, a lot of the indoctrination that you've taught, a lot of the things that you were taught. You will have to deprogram. You will have to unlearn a lot of these things, and you will have to heal a lot of the things that told you that you were not enough, that you're not worthy, and that you have to look outside of yourself for that worthiness. You will have to heal a lot of the trauma that you've experienced, and that can only be done in silence. That can only be done when you tune out. That can only be done when you start to see why you act the way you act, what informed that, and start to release that, let go of that. Now I'm going to talk a lot about that into this channel, I Am That I Am, because healing is a huge part of the spiritual awakening journey that a lot of people want to skip over, because they might learn about manifestation, they might learn about the fact that you're all powerful, they might learn about all of these things, and you want to skip right over to it because you feel like, oh, I want to get to the good part. But healing allows you to let go of all of the things that helped you manifest, all of the things you manifested in your old life, in your old way of being, in the old consciousness. If you don't heal, you will continue to attract all of the same things. And so that isolation phase is essential to the spiritual awakening journey. And if you're going through an isolation phase, you feel like you can't relate to the people around you, you feel like the people around you don't understand you and what you're going through, you feel like even the conversations that you're having with people, they don't satisfy you, you want to go a lot deeper, and you're going through that alone, signs is that you're going through an isolation phase. And I kind of went over sign number 6 too, is that you're going to have to heal your trauma. Now, a lot of the trauma that you faced in the past is going to come back to the surface. Oh Lord, that the way, oh Lord, a lot of the trauma that you've experienced in the past is going to come in the surface, and you're going to have to face it. This is another step process where I think a lot of people get lost, because a lot of the trauma that they've experienced is resurfacing, and they think that they're doing something wrong. Especially if you know that you're going through a spiritual awakening, you think that life is supposed to be all happiness and rainbows and sunshines, and then you start to realize that, oh my God, a lot of the things that I have been repressing and suppressing within myself is now coming to the surface for me to see it, for me to deal with it, and for me to let go of it. Because if I want to manifest bigger and better things, I have to let go of the things that are keeping me down. And so for that to happen, a lot of these traumas, a lot of these unhealed wounds, a lot of this inner child, a lot of that inner child is going to want to come back up, and you're going to have to see it, to feel it, and to release it. A lot of people run away from that because it's hard. It's hard when your daddy issues all of a sudden come back up. It's hard when your abandonment issues all of a sudden they're right there in your face. It's hard and you want to blame everything out of yourself, but no, you're going to have to face it and release it. So a lot of these traumas are going to come up. So if that is happening to you right now, that's a sign that you're going through a spiritual awakening. Now, sign number 7 is that you're going to also develop hypersensitivity. So that means that you're going to start to feel a lot more intensely all the energies around you. This world is energy. We are energy. If you believe in science, you know that there's only one energy, and I translate that there's only one God, and God is all energy. And when you're going through a spiritual awakening, you start to feel all these energies a lot more intensely. And it starts with the little things, like with the food that you eat. You start to actually taste all the different ingredients a lot more intensively. You start to hear all the different sounds in nature and in people a lot more. Everything is literally intensified. And that's one of the reasons too that you might start to think that you're going crazy. It's kind of like, when you might smoke weed or you might smoke and you kind of taste everything more intensely, like everything is intensified. That's the same thing when you start to have a spiritual awakening. You start to experience that, but almost every day you start to experience that more frequently. And it is because you are starting to, your energy field is expanding. Okay, we as humans, we all have energetical fields, right? We don't just have our body. Like if somebody comes right next to you right here, right, you can feel them. Somebody comes right next to me and doesn't necessarily touch me, right? I'm still going to be able to feel them even if they're not touching me, because we are energy. We can sense energy. But when you're having a spiritual awakening, right, that area that you can feel people at, now it's expanding. Now if somebody comes closer to you, like even from like a mile away, you might sense them. The same way that animals are able to sense things way outside of their sight is the same way that when you're having a spiritual awakening as a human, you start to experience and sense energy way outside of your five senses, right? We as humans, we don't just have our five senses. That's what our consciousness is allowing us to experience. Our five senses, I'm not gonna name them right now because I'm blocking, but sight, touch, taste, sound, and something else. But we can experience life and have energetical fields that can experience a lot more outside of the five senses. When you're starting to have a spiritual awakening, you start to tap into that. So if that's happening to you, that's a tell sign that you might be going through a spiritual awakening. Now, that goes right into sign number 8, because sign number 8, you actually start to tap into your supernatural powers. Well, we deem them and we look at them as supernatural powers, but honestly, they're just natural to who we are. When you start to expand your consciousness, when you start to expand your energetical field, you start to actually be able to do different things that are considered supernatural for the average human being right now. So a lot of things that are seen as supernatural, as lucky, as something you see in the movies or whatever, you start to generally tap into that. And I think that back in the days, a lot of the people that were called witches, that were burned at the stake, that's what they were actually experiencing. But because the consciousness level back in the days was so low, vibrating at such low vibration, they saw that and believed that it was evil and they were burning them up at the stake. And I believe that in our modern society, we're still doing that. The vibration, our general vibration is still very much low, even though it's increasing. But I believe that we're still doing that. Instead of burning people at the stake and calling them witches, we are diagnosing them with mental illnesses and calling them schizophrenic or whatever else, right? But I believe that those are people that have or are starting to tap into those supernatural powers. They just haven't learned how to ground those supernatural powers. It's kind of like when you watch the superhero movies, and when they start to learn that they have superpowers, right, and they don't know really how to handle that superpower, they're kind of like being messy with it. They're not really utilizing it in the best way possible, in their best ability, because they haven't learned how to they haven't learned how to control that superpower. They haven't learned how to ground in it. And I think that a lot of people that we deem as mentally ill, that's literally what happened. They had a spiritual awakening. They didn't really learn how to ground into their supernatural abilities, and now they are being subjected to all these wars and whatnot. Back in the days, they were just being burnt. So that's the same thing. But if you are starting to see that, wait, I've noticed that I have this ability. For me, for instance, I know that I have the ability to sense when somebody is lying to me. Like I just know. If you're lying to me, I might not say anything, but I just know. I can just sense it. It's crazy. Another thing is manifestations. I have so many stories of crazy manifestation things that just happen on the spot that I've started to experience, and I'm like, whoa, whoa. But those are the things that you have to learn to ground into. And if that's happening to you, that's a big sign that you might be going through a spiritual awakening. Now, sign number 9 is that you might start to experience glimpses of bliss, the bliss state. The bliss state is when you just feel in harmony with life. You just feel in harmony with nature. It's something that you can't really explain and put into words, but it's just like, it's like just this, oh, just this is amazing. There's just like you're floating and just life is just so perfect and blissful and just amazing. And you start to experience that. Like I've experienced that, and it just feels so like, this is what life is. This is what God wanted from us. And I think that even if you're not going through a spiritual awakening, some people have experienced that. That's why people run after like activities that make you forget, that make you stop thinking. Because a lot of times when you experience a blissful state, you stop thinking and you're just here in the now moments, in the present. And so a lot of these extreme sports that people do is because they're reaching for that blissful state, right? A lot of these dangerous activities like skydiving and things like that, that just make you feel your whole body has to be present. And when you're present, when you stop thinking and you actually experience what it feels like to be in the present, when your whole being is in the now moment, just experiencing whatever you're experiencing in this very now moment, which is what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be in the now at all times, because that's what life is. It's in the now. It's only happening now. The past and the future does not exist. It's happening now. But usually our brain and our minds is somewhere else. It's not there. But when you're in the blissful state, you are, and everything about you is in this now moment, and it just feels so good. And humans, we are chasing that. But when you just experience that just out of nowhere, you're not necessarily doing anything special, but you're experiencing that, you're starting to have those glimpses of that blissful moment without doing necessarily anything for it. Those are tell signs that you might be going through a spiritual awakening. Okay, and sign number 10 is that there's just no going back. Once you start a spiritual awakening, I'm sorry, no matter how much you try to be like, I don't want to know anymore. I wish I could just be a walking zombie like the rest of the world and just accept a mundane life on autopilot, and not ask myself those bigger questions and just be and just enjoy whatever life has to offer. I'm sorry. No matter how much you try to tell yourself this, there's no going back. Once you see more, you know more, and there's only going forward. There's no more going backwards. And I think that that's what a lot of the geniuses of the world that may have ended up killing themselves is because they knew too much, especially around time periods where the vibrational level was so low. So a lot of people didn't understand had no clue what they were going through, thought that they were crazy, that they were witches like I talked about earlier. And they just felt so lonely, they just felt so isolated, and they didn't want to see anymore. It was just too much to handle, because it's like, what do I do with all this information now that I know that there's just so much more to life, now that I'm experiencing so much more to life? What do I do with this? What you do with this is you learn how to sit in your power, you learn how to ground yourself, you learn how to heal yourself, you learn how to even spread the message at some point, if you're called to, in whatever way, and learn how to embody the truth of who they truly are in order to give back to the world in such a bigger, grander, better way. Those are the 10 signs that you are going through a spiritual awakening. And if you're watching this, you probably are. And I will do a lot more videos like this of some of the signs that are happening while you're going through a spiritual awakening, or what happens through consciousness, at least from my perspective, from what I've been going through. So thank you for watching, and see you guys on my next episode. Bye.